through some stories that made the headlines. And of course, we serve you with the weather reports, calls for the day. We'll go into our interview segment after it, and we'll wrap it up with sports update. All right, this morning, I'll begin with stories from the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. And the story, major story there says Makinde declares for presidency. The story is on page 2, and of course calls for national unity against one-party rule. Massive PDP APM rally. All right, let's go to all the stories there. ADC falls FG move to seek fresh $1.25 billion World Bank loan. On page 5 and 28, APC primaries, Tinubu cautions party leadership. Governors urges fair contest. Crisis rock or your APC. Secretariat attacked over alleged imposition of candidate. All right, Southwest Development Commission secures rail license to drive regional connectivity, economic transformation. The story is on page 3. SEC raises alarm over rising Ponzi scheme on the social media. That story is on page 6. Automotive industry growth, NDDC, DG Osonic calls for strategic development after sales service. All right, we also have scientists that reveal best exercise for knee arthritis pain relief. That story is on page 3. Let's go to some inside stories that made the headline this morning. Unibank unveils 100 billion Naira Trust Development Fund target infrastructure. SWDC secure a rail license to drive regional connectivity. All right, we'll come to some other stories this morning. ADC Atiku Amechi submit presidential nomination form. Protests rock Oyo APC secretariat over alleged imposition of candidate. Ekiti Guba, INEC begins distribution of non-sensitive materials in 16 local governments. I'm in dilemma over political direction in Nigeria, coming from Sule Lamido. Right, APM has come to stay in Southwest. Oshunguba candidate said that. Ayedatiwa converses support for Kekemeke ahead of by-election in Ondo South. Obasafa Leke face contest as 91 aspirant battle for 24 reps ticket in Lagos. APC postponed House of Rep primaries. Women youth back or Laoshe become reps bid. It's my turn to represent Oluyole, he says. All right, let's go to some other stories there. You have on page 7, TCN boosts national grid with additional 600 megawatt. Right, NDIC seeks recovery of 125.38 billion Naira asset linked to defunct Gulf Bank. All right, on page 8 and 9, the stories there. Lagos raises the lab over sand scarcity, warns of rising building cost, food insecurity. All right, on the editorial page on page 9, the Jet A1 Palava. Right, on page 10, Castina, where poverty will not bury genius. Execution discipline will define an agenda for power sector. All right, how Governor Kwebolo is constructing a modern Edo when world's top scientists became Fuadis, the DVC said that. All right, court dismisses bid to stop 1.9 billion Naira airtime fraud trial. All right, presidency push stronger local government to tackle youth unemployment. On the page of Eye of Islam, over 860,000 foreign pilgrims arrived Saudi Arabia for 2026 Hajj. The the champion disburses 6.4 million Naira zakat to 44 beneficiaries in Oyo. We come to page 14, shaping youth's future with digital literacy empowerment, the Olajide example. Right on the Friday extra page, how the Heineken House experience at Ilubiri rewrote script for premium entertainment in Nigeria. All right, we'll go to other stories. Entertainment story there. Adekunle Gold unveiled as a Markland brand ambassador in Nigeria. Said Osupa, the man who teaches culture and tradition with music. Ascent meets Sip, Sinde Signatures Lagos, Semba, redefined African luxury with taste of smell. All right, still on the entertainment page, continuity over politics, okay? This is Travel Plus Minds page. Makine's bet on 25 years tourism plan as a structural pillar for sustainable growth. Inside Arewa, Sokoto government approves road, airport NYC camp project with billions of naira. Niger governor's wife empowers 250 women with cash support. All right, we'll come to page 20. Bochi, UNICEF launched UK-funded climate resilience project for schools' healthcare. All right, don't trust Obi to do one term presidency, tells Nigerians. All right, Kwara 105 APC House of Reps member aspirants disqualified. We came back to PDP as dissociate self from Ibadan APM Alliance rally. All right, APC women protest against Shekarao as consensus candidate for Kano Central bid. All right, politics and policy, Ondo 2027. Ayeda Tiwa, political block in consensus drama. Sports stories on the vintage sport this morning. Motion set for Diamond League. You have Aina ruled out of Man United clash. I have no role model. That's coming from Eze Core. Shocker for Rosemary, miss out on gold. Ian Acho is terrific. Celtic Ball said that. All right, you have a motion set for Diamond League. Those are some of the stories from the world of sport. You also have CAA Ghana 2026 medal harvest for Nigeria countries. You have Nigeria youngster Taye Yusuf making waves at Olympicos. Shocker for Rosemary misses out of gold. And then we'll go to page 30. FGD Bunks report on 40% pillar allowance for workers. And on the back page, Dams in Phenomena says, Silver boss. Arsenal fan hails Saka via emotional letter. Nadal deny Real Madrid presidency bid. And of course, those are some of the stories that made the headline this morning from the Nigerian Tribune. Over to you, Victor.
We've got a couple of headlines from a couple of newspapers this morning to read, and I'll start with the Punch newspaper, where we have this one, 2027. Atiku Amechi submits ADC presidential forms. EFCC operatives assaulted hospital workers, dragged me into van. That's coming from the UUTH doctor. You find more stories about that on pages 4 and 5. On page 2, fierce lobbying tension as APC primaries begin. Don't wreck the boats, Tinubu urges APC leaders and aspirants. Consensus talks collapse in Taraba, Yobe, Kano, or your APC office attacked. Kaduna moves to camp screening tensions. APC chieftains sue for peace. On page 19, 2027 poll spending may trigger inflation, MPC wants. And on page 7, 2027, Makinde joins presidential race once against one-party state. Now to the Guardian newspaper, where we have these big stories on pages 4 and 5. Economic crunch squeezes poultry, farmers pushes eggs off menus. And that's talking about nutrition crisis. Nigeria attracts almost $20 billion FDI this year, Tinubu projects. Neymar alerts 30 states to possible severe flooding, urges prevention. Find that on page 7. And ADC faults fresh loan. Federal government's economic model on page 3. MSF treats over 440,000 malnourished Nigerian children as hunger crisis worsens. There's a story on page 37. And on that same page, you have federal government worried as regions receiving 80% education funding, record lowest literacy rates. Makinde declares for 2027 presidency as Wike rejects PDP APM alliance. You find more of that on page 6. And we have on that same page, amid pushback, APC opts for direct primaries as Tinubu once against do or die politics. On page 9, NMA threatens 1 billion naira lawsuit against EFCC over assaults of UUTH doctors. And we have the story of Nigeria rallies donors and partners to fund $6 billion Ogoni cleanup. Now to the Nation newspaper, where we have the opening story. Makinde declares for president on the APM platform. PDP disowns governor's alliance claim. Amechi, I'm most qualified for tickets. Zoning not priority in ADC, says Ayatu Dean. At Tinubu, Nigeria attracted $20 billion foreign investments this year. APM Terminals pledges $600 million in fresh port ventures. APC members to vote in 8,809 electoral votes for reps tickets. And PDP screens presidential, governorship, National Assembly aspirants. And that's a story you find on page 2. And yes, that's what we have right here this morning for you on the newspaper review segment. We go now for the weather report.
It's up to architect Bisola and builder Brian to rebuild the city.
We'll need some help. Let's get up and go!
You'll need more Cowbell Choco to complete your mission.
To get up and go, give them Cowbell Choco.
welcome back. It's still AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. We're now in the interview segment this morning, and we have our guest in the studio. We'll be looking at what we call debate on the proposed $1.25 billion World Bank loan. And to do justice to the conversation, an economist is our first guest this morning, and that's our regular guest, Dr. Adekunle Onile. You're welcome, sir, to the program.
Good morning.
All right, of course, as of May 2026, the Nigerian government is in advanced negotiation with the World Bank for a new $1.25 billion loan titled Nigeria Actions for Investment and Job Acceleration, expected to be presented for approval on June 2026. This facility is intended to support ongoing economic reforms, but it has triggered a heated debate regarding Nigeria's debt sustainability and the timing of the borrowing. Meanwhile, Nigeria's debt profile has seen a significant increase over the last year, driven by currency devaluation, budget deficit, and continued borrowing to meet fiscal obligation. As of May 2026, the fiscal landscape remains under intense pressure, with debt servicing taking center stage in economic discussions. Based on the latest data from the Debt Management Office, DMO, and recent economic reports, Nigeria's total public debt, federal and state government, has crossed the $110 billion mark. Wow. That's what we have this morning. All right, Dr. Onile, you're welcome once again.
Good morning.
I'm not sure that we're going to stop borrowing, actually, with the way we're going. I'm not sure. And I remember at one of the conversations, you have told us that there is no big deal in borrowing. But let's look at this new borrowing. Does the situation warrant borrowing for the acclaimed Nigerians' reform and or actions? Do we really need to borrow at this time?
Yeah, good morning, everyone, actually. I really do think that we should be circumspect about this issue of loan. And a good dose of education and purpose must be put forward before Nigerians, so that we don't derail both the citizen and then the government. Now, as I've always stressed at different fora, loan is not a calamity. Loan is not something that makes you a debtor, per se, in quotes. You are a debtor. But when you talk in terms of Nigerian usage of the word debtor, people see you as insolvent. That is not the situation. As a matter of fact, if you keep on getting more loans, it means you are credit worthy. If you are not, nobody will give his money to somebody who has defaulted or is defaulting. That's the first point. Then second, loan. What is the nature of loan? A loan is something you give to somebody because you don't actually need it.
Really?
Yeah.
No, there are a lot of people you give loans to that you need the money. But maybe because of the interest you're getting from it is the reason why you're giving out that money. Or
That
you
is
feel
where
that the person's needs are more important, or...
That's where the scale of preference comes in.
Yes.
You might have this money. You might have your home problem. But just like you rightly said, you might feel that that money, you are postponing your own consumption of it. You want that money to bring in more income. You understand? So what I'm saying is that the idea of loan or debt is an economic cycle itself. It's even good for the economy, global economy I'm talking now, for money to recirculate. Not just that some people will just keep the money idle somewhere, whereas some people can put it to better use. It's like you having resources. When you have resources now, maybe one person now has almost 10 cars in his garage, whereas some people don't have any. The same 10 cars are getting rotten away. You understand? But there's nothing wrong if you want to make the world better. If you loan some of these cars to those who need it, you give it out to them, please, maintain it and make proper use and returns to me. Everybody become happy. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the idea of loan for Nigeria at this point is not a doomsday issue. It is not something wrong. It is not something unpalatable, despite the way it is. What is unpalatable about it is we are a country with history of corruption. And because corruption is our greatest enemy, once people hear money issue, everybody think this money is going down the drain. That is just the only thing that I see worth putting attention to. Because, like I keep on repeating, as long as World Bank and other multilateral agencies are ready to give us more money, it's because they are getting those money back. If they are not getting it, they won't give it out.
So you mean because we are servicing the debt?
Yes.
We are still, but then there is the issue. In the last 2 years plus, about 3 years, we have borrowed more than the previous administration borrowed in about 8 years. And definitely it raises a lot of questions because the number of times you have gone out borrowing, the amount that you have borrowed is somehow to the brain. And you ask the question, where are all the monies going to if we still have what we have presently in the country?
That is now should be the question. Not where are we taking more loans? Where are all the loans going to? That is what should concern. It's just like this issue of the South Africans, these xenophobic issues. People are misplacing their problem. And problem identification is the first solution to a problem.
Identification.
Yes, correct problem identification. As long as you don't identify your problem and you assume this is your problem, somebody else is your problem, you might just be on a free ride. You understand? Nigeria problem is not getting loan or paying back loan. As a matter of fact, we are on Finch credit rating, good ones. You understand? Because we are repaying. Although the percentage of our revenue that we are using to prepay debt is among us. And that means now what we are doing is like round tripping. We are getting more loans to service the debt. You understand now? But then, that is still part of the strategy. As long as we are increasing productivity with the money.
What productivity are we increasing? Let's look at it.
Well, infrastructures, for example. Okay, good. Now, at least to the best of my knowledge, why some of the loans might look bogus, there are critical ones that address infrastructural need. The one for the Tinkanda Island port, the one for these highway maintenances and construction of new highways. All these are not going to be immediate gains, but long-time gains. They will pay for themselves. You understand? The returns might not be realized immediately, but certainly, you know what? What Nigerians should even be proud of is that during their lifetime, certain things are put in place. You are able to experience it. And the only way government most times can do that is to borrow money. And borrowing money is done at local, state, and federal. People are even at personal level, each individual, by the time you ask, if you carry 10 people, put them and start asking them questions, a lot of people are borrowers. Yeah, even their lifestyles. There are people, but people just feel it is only government that borrow.
Dr. Nile, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you want to disagree?
Yes, I'm not from that. I don't believe in that school of thought that,
you are free.
Borrowing, to live one's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually know how people who borrow.
How they survive.
Yes, how they survive. As when I mean survive, if they don't have high blood pressure, if they don't, if they are able to sleep actually, and if they're able to make.
Let me make some clarification around
Please
that.
do.
You see, borrowing, as I've said at the beginning of the program, is not for those who don't have a goal or purpose, economic or productive purpose. You understand? That's a difference. You don't just borrow to go and do Owambe. That I lost my father, therefore I want to turn his side. You understand now? Those are the concepts of borrowing that Africans or we in our society are used to. You understand? Most of these giant companies you see today, Apple, what do you call them now? Elon Musk, most of these rich people started their companies borrowing, which they have grown into multi-trillion companies. You don't understand. It's you cannot have all the resources at a go. You have to make use of other people's.
You can plan, because now the
That is part of the planning.
No, I disagree, Dr. Onile. Now, part of the planning should have been that the humongous monies we are spending to service our debts can be put together for some of this infrastructure.
No.
And then the interest we are paying on those loans can also do some other, meaningful things for us as a nation.
Let me go around it this way for you to understand. The most developed, advanced, and rich nation in the world is USA. They are also the biggest debtor. How come? That's not a contradiction. That's not even Nigeria. That's not even. Now I'm coming. That is even one. The second one is China. The same thing with China. Google it. If other big countries are borrowing as debtors, you now take Nigeria, who has not even grown at all. If we take loan, that is not the way the economy is run. Our problem is corruption, not the loan.
Okay, Dr. Nide, I get you. Although sometimes I want to ask the question, who are all these people owing?
That we are talking about.
When we say those countries,
I mean, no, it's a question I think you should ask.
So sometimes we ask, why? Because there was a time they said altogether the hearts, all the countries on hearts hold so amount of money.
Yes.
I want to ask who they are owing.
Me and you.
and how is World Bank able to bring together the money
all
that
the monies that they are doing?
yes.
Okay. So now the question is, this particular loan, because we need people to understand very well.
Yeah.
This particular loan that they are targeting now, $1.25 billion. When the announcement came out, people have gone to several social media platforms to say, stop borrowing Nigeria. I saw the trend yesterday, I was laughing last night. People saying, stop borrowing Nigeria money, stop borrowing Nigeria money, World Bank. Now, what is this particular loan meant to service? What's it meant to fund? What's the projection like? And what is the commitment to fulfilling? If it's a policy, what is it meant to fulfill? How is it going to be fulfilling that?
All right. You see, before institutions like World Bank give out their resources, okay, the other time, let me ask this question. You ask how even the World Bank get the money themselves. You see, that is basic economics. The World Bank is an effort of all the nations of the world who pay dues.
Okay. Okay, so we pay yearly dues.
Yes, every nation of the world pay dues.
Yearly.
Yes.
We are unplaneted
And
as a
this
country.
money the World Bank invested. That is what people don't understand. It's like shareholders.
Okay.
It's like the banks who borrow out your money to others. It's not banks' money. You understand now? That's how the economy is a kind of, dynamic system.
So it's not magic.
It's not magic. It's a dynamic. World Bank is not a human being. It's not somebody. It's all of us. So we pull our resources together, and we give to those in need. You understand now? In return for some gains, which we now use to run the business and to also ensure the world economic system did not collapse, it is moving.
So it's like, I owe us money.
Yes. So if we were talking about World Bank money now, Nigeria is also a shareholder in this same money you are talking about. So you understand. So this is why I said to a layman, most of these things doesn't make sense.
Okay. Now, we have this debt servicing. The federal government has projected a spending of approximately 15 trillion naira on debt servicing in 2026. That's in the budget.
Yeah.
And this underscores a critical fiscal challenge where a vast majority of generated revenue is redirected to creditors rather than infrastructure or social service.
Yes.
External versus domestic debt continues to hold the largest share, roughly 54 to 60%, primarily through FG bonds, treasury bills, and specialized instruments like sukuk and green bonds. So now, the question here is 50 to 60%. I don't know, would I?
Even let me correct that data. At a point, Nigeria was paying almost 90% of its revenue to service debt, if not even 100%. Yeah.
Under the last administration?
Yes, during Buhari's administration. So all the capital budget was sponsored as deficit by borrowing.
So they now, so by the time they are borrowing, they are paying salaries from it?
Yes.
So now, there's some school of thought that believe that this particular borrowing is ahead of the 2027 general election.
That is always...
The plan is to use the money to, get the election in place.
That is, the people should come out with the fact. That is propaganda. As far as economy is concerned, you know why? As long as you have not been able to pinpoint, because we should not come here and be talking on speculations. One should talk as a scientist with facts. So all my stand has always been on facts, unless I'm given a better fact. Once I get a better fact, I shift my position. You understand? But as long as you have not provided me a fact, if you make just bare parlor statement, I will always reject it.
Okay. Doctor, you have not answered my question from earlier.
All right.
What is this loan meant to fund?
That's what I'm saying, that all loans have a purpose. You see, before even those companies you are thinking, those organizations give you their money. Apart from you having a purpose, they themselves will scrutinize the purpose. So there's always a purpose to loan. It's not a jamboree.
Okay.
It is not. No serious organization with resources will give it out without due process. You understand? Before money is released to Nigerian government, there's always a due process. There is a team that studies whether this money is actually needed, whether it should be given out, whether it can be repaid. There are seasoned intelligence people who do that. But the problem is that there's a difference between paperwork and reality. On paperwork, all those things will be done to answer your own question that what is actually that is paper question. But when the money gets to those who will manage it, that's where we have problem. You understand?
It's the execution. Because I'm trying to search and I'm seeing there's something about the Nigeria Actions for Investment and Job Acceleration, and they're expecting that it will be approved at the June 26, 2026 World Bank Board meeting. I don't know how that will become, but let's look at the fact that our debt is rising to, I think, well over 150
and so is our development.
Our development is rising?
Yes. It's not as if the infrastructure we have 10 years ago are still, that there's no addition. We are not statics. You understand now? We know how most of our roads are 10 years ago. You understand? There have been new construction, new additions, new ports, new... So, when people talk as if of course, our debt has to rise because our growth is rising. And that's why I told you last time that the more a nation develops, the more debtor it becomes.
But then, is it growing at the rates that we should be seeing or getting of the country with that much debt?
Well, that is now where the question is. That are we achieving that result? That is for all of us to answer. Whether we are making the real progress that is needed will depend on our GDP and standard of living of individuals. Because we might have a high GDP for a country and the individuals themselves might not benefit from it. You understand that all those monies, all those trillions, all those gains are being siphoned out again through the back door by some people, instead of that money being recycled back into the local economy, which is actually the purpose. You understand? So the problem with loans is that management of it and the execution of it. So, and it is very difficult. That's where we are now. It's very difficult for anybody. I hope you are getting this. To stop. I'm still insisting. Taking loan, despite the cries and woes from citizens. I never see a country where they stop taking loans because it never makes economic sense. Now, you elected me for 4 years. You expect me to perform. How I get the money is not your business. You don't want to know. You assume the money is there. You understand now? So, and I have a purpose. I'm a politician. I want to impress. I want to leave records. You're not telling me that if somebody is ready to give me the money to do that project today. That's why most of our leaders, governors, and that you are seeing, all of them take loans. Because they understand the intricacies, which an ordinary citizen doesn't understand. By the time you leave the post and you don't achieve, they won't say because you don't have money. They will say, you understand? But if you achieve, even if you achieve it on loan, everybody will say, hooray. You understand?
Doctor, at what point does borrowing become very dangerous for a country?
By the time the money you borrow is not put to productive use.
Has it been put to productive use in Nigeria?
That is a question for all of us.
I say it's a question for all of us because one of the questions, I was on a platform last night and we were having a discussion about this, and someone asked, for a country that is so rich in resources, why are we still borrowing at this rate without much development?
The answer is simple. Sorry I took it from your mouth. Very, very simple. If you see Nigeria have so much resources, so does other countries of the world. If we have better resources, America have greater oil reserve than Nigeria. Funny enough, people have always thought Nigeria is this. I just look at it. It's because when you don't pass your own father's backyard, you think that's your life.
When you say oil reserve, it's different from us having the source itself.
That's what I'm telling you. Oil reserve is property zone, potential money. You understand now? Why do you do? Okay, let's look at it this way. Why must America borrow where it has trillions of oil stored? That's the question. That's why you now know that economics like engineering.
Even the citizen lives on credit card.
Yes, God bless you. That is where, you see, even the house they live is mortgage. That is a reason, sense in all those things. But our own culture is not built that way. That's why we think that does not make sense. And at the end of the day, nobody owes anything. We don't own anything in this world. That's the funny thing. All of us thought this is my home, or this is our home, or this is, shall you understand? No. We came here, if our life is borrowed, we're not the owner of our life. Everything is borrowing.
God gave us.
Yes, because he borrowed us. The meaning of borrow is this. He gave it to us with something that is returning from. It's expecting as a return from, which is to live a good life. That's borrowing. God himself is expecting some interest, some benefit or gain from you.
Dr. O'Neill, let's look at this loan of a thing. This proposed $1.25 billion World Bank loan. What if the World Bank declines giving us this loan, based on the cries of Nigerians that we do not need that loan at this time?
Like I've said earlier, the World Bank doesn't listen to the citizens. They listen to their data. They are not politicians. You understand? No matter how much, I'm here to say this on public TV, citizens cry, it doesn't stop person who want to borrow you money. It can only stop your own government from taking the money, not the other way around.
And do you think government will stop? Do you think government will, as a result of the cry, not take the money?
They can. And they start giving you a reason why they are not performing. No money. Let me tell you something. It's not as if government doesn't realize that there's a problem with this thing. In fact, if you look at it this way, the Minister of Finance, the current Minister of Taiwo Yedele, said something last week. Government itself is not comfortable with financing the economy with loans. He was saying they have to stop relying on money, on loans, to run the economy. That's even from the ministry, from the Minister of Finance of the Federation himself. So, and he gave us options. So you understand, one of the options government is pursuing is this tax reform to get alternative revenue. If you don't borrow or take loans, you have to look for other sources of money. And one of the other sources of money is tax. And again, people are shouting, hey, they are cleaning us with tax. So you have to pick between the devil and the blue sea. There's something you can do about that. You understand now?
We'll be able to swim in the blue
that will take some miracle.
Well, miracles happen.
Okay.
Now, let's look at the implication of all of these borrowings. Whatever we're using the money for, we have seen, we'll only be deceiving ourselves if we say that government is not borrowing to pay salaries. It seems like government is borrowing to do everything.
I think they are even better off now.
Okay.
Government is presently better off. These are the things I want Nigerians to be informed about.
Please tell us.
I'm not a government spokesman or propagandist. But the point remains that at some point in Nigeria, state government and local government actually borrow money from the banks to pay salary. Now, they have excess. Yes, they have plenty of money. You don't hear of a state governor now saying that he took a loan or also from First Bank or from just to run it. No. These are improvements that people just take for granted. You understand? At some point, they couldn't even assess that. They couldn't have the money to pay. Now they have the money to pay. The question is whether after paying for overheads, the surpluses are channeled to what will bring more returns. So you understand? And that is where I want Nigerian citizens to focus and let their voice be heard loudest. You understand? That, okay, this new 1.25 billion you are taking from World Bank, you understand? We want to hear and know how you want to spend it, and we want to monitor how it is being spent. We want daily feedback of the process of its actualization. You understand?
If you have borrowed me money, what does it, how does it concern you how I spend the money?
That's what I'm saying. It concerns me because I am the one you are going to default to. It's my money, not even your money. The fact that I borrow you does not make it your money.
I have been paying you the ones I owe. So how I spend my money, it is not my money.
There is a risk. There is a risk you might default. And there is a law. Caveat emptor. Buyers beware. Borrowers beware. You understand? Because there are some debt that World Bank has written off as bad debt. That's the loss in their account book. So they have a right to monitor how their money is being spent.
Doctor, while looking at some angles to this conversation, in the years that we said we did not borrow up to what we have borrowed now, we had someone at the seat of power at the World Bank for several, I think about 25 years.
Yeah.
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, managing director. And having someone like that in the place of power, I'm thinking maybe she was able to advise us economically and help us monitor so many things, as well as manage the affairs of the World Bank rightly. Maybe a lack of someone who is placed as highly as that is making us go gung-ho with the borrowing.
No. Nations of the world, including Nigeria, have been borrowing before Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
At this rate?
When you say at this rate, the rate depends on reality. That is the daily reality, the current situation. The way Nigeria is in 1960s or 50s or 70s. No. In fact, if you remember in the 70s, Nigeria actually borrowed other nations' money. Yeah. Maybe people have forgotten that. So it's a matter of time and tide.
So how did we get to where we are currently? That
mismanagement, corruption.
Who mismanaged the funds?
All of us.
I was not there.
If you say you are not there, that is the funny thing about responsibility. Yes, that's what they call everybody is responsible to how, that is, the people get the leader they deserve. You're doing something and you're not doing it, it's very, very vital to the result. If you refuse as a citizen, you understand, to partake in political process that will bring out good leadership, or you get compromised or corrupted, and now that person get into power and started misbehaving, and you say, no, I'm not a politician, or I'm not involved. You are. Your idleness, you're doing nothing about it, is a...
Okay, since we're in the politics of it, say for example now, in an election, I vote for someone, but it doesn't get the required number of votes to become the president, the leader of the country.
All right.
How do I get involved? I'm asking this because what you've just said,
Yeah.
is...
How you get involved is that there must be viral opposition.
Do we have viral opposition?
Well, that's a question again for all of us. You understand? A country will be how a citizen wants it to be. I'm still insisting. Why? Even if you have a bad leader, that bad leader can be sent packing. That bad leader can be frustrated out. That bad leader can be thrown out by revolutions. That bad leader that you are talking about, can actually excuse himself. We've had stories of countries where leaders, out of frustration, that the people
In Africa?
Well, it may not be in Africa.
Because there are peculiarities, Doctor.
Because in Africa we are too docile, too how would I put it? But I'm telling you, you ask for the question, the solution, not for peculiarities.
Are we too docile in Africa?
Yeah,
I think
we are. Where I say we are too docile is that I also happens to be a politician on one side. So I have a first-hand experience of our nature. You understand? People take a lot of mundane and unimportant things into consideration in taking serious political decisions that affect their life. You understand? It's from my village. His money is the one that is more. He gave me 5,000. Why this other party said they are only give me 500? You know, these are some of the issues. And then when you see somebody who is misbehaving, you know it's going to affect your life. You carry face and say, well, nothing concern me. Let him do whatever he do now. Even if I cry, nothing will happen. Something will happen if you cry. Maybe there's another person who also want to cry. But it too is thinking I'm alone. All of you are thinking you are alone individually. But by the time they cries, everybody has the boldness.
So you have said we have allowed some mundane factors
Yes.
to influence our decisions.
Our decisions.
In the electionary process.
That is it.
And you mentioned tribal factors, affiliations, and all that, nepotism, so to speak.
Yes.
And then the amounts that we get from it.
Yes.
Now, looking at all these problems now, how do we get ourselves away from it without, blood being shed? Because I've heard a lot of people say this thing, it has to take sacrifice.
You know what? At some point, on the other hand, I was impressed with the South Africans. The only thing is the method.
What do you mean?
They wanted to take control of their country. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. But the method they are using, because sometimes if you want to clean your farm, instead of using a hoe or cutlass, you are now using fire to burn the whole farm. If you are not very careful, you will burn the crop with the farm and with the weeds. You understand what I'm trying to say now? The method the South Africans are using is wrong. You don't recourse to illegality to affirm legality. If you want to come to equity, must have clean hands. True, granted, some people are criminals, some people are illegal migrants into your country. Sure, you understand? The right thing to do is to face your judicial system, your government, and your police. You understand? It is those ones that will now do their job appropriately. And once they refuse to do their job appropriately, you take over. The foreigners have no problem. The problem is with your own people who encourage the foreigners. But if you now go around and face saying, those are the first step first. No, that's not the first step. That is the second step, and you are missing the leg.
Okay, let's look at how to deal with corruption. Whether we like it or not, there's corruption in the system.
Yes.
How can we deal with this corruption and ensure that whatever resources we get is being used appropriately?
Corruption is a canker, a serious cancer. Because from the very day God created human being, You understand? Eh? We become selfish, self-centered. You'll be surprised at people who will tell you, I can't take what does not belong to me. And the very moment they know they can take it without anybody knowing or any consequence, they will gladly do it. It is an instinct called survival of the what? Of the fittest. What do we mean by survival of the fittest? Survival of the fittest is still you want to override others. You understand? There is war now, there is stampede. Everybody is climbing on top of each other. Why? Why must we climb on top of another person? Why don't we take it easy, one by one? No, because everybody wants to save his own life first. No matter if you are actually going to cause another person to die by stampeding, not even by what is driving the danger. You understand now? There's a problem in the state. Everybody is trying at the same time to get out of the entrance. It's not the problem that caused death again. It is the behaviors of the fans. What have become irrational, become self-centered. Nobody wants to die again. That is the way the world is. Corruption is going to be very difficult to eliminate completely. But in countries where there is growth, you make laws and conditions that makes it impossible or difficult for corruption to thrive. That is what they did.
But we have laws in Nigeria that kicks against corruption. Yes. As we wind down, so I mean, what do we do with these laws? Because they are there. And sometimes cases go to courts. I mean, they're there 4 years, 5 years, some 10 years. And if you're not careful, the person who took the case to court is even gone while the case is still ongoing.
That is what system. If it's not a corrupt trading system, as long as there are laws, the laws will survive. The laws did not survive because the system is corrupt. You understand what we are saying now? But there's one final thing. Because if we talk from now till eternity, what we are looking for is solution. The solution to Nigeria greatness and development is still lies in the hands of the citizens.
It lies in our hands.
In our hands.
How so?
So you understand? We are the ones, that's why I said South Africa case, 50-50. I blame their method, I support their cause. You understand now? That
Okay.
although they are lazy and stuff and they are just looking for scapegoats.
Assume that they are lazy. Assume.
I will tell you why. Well, I didn't assume. I'll tell you why. I have a friend who lives in South Africa. He's my classmate for the past 15 years or so. He immediately got to South Africa. He was unemployed. He has no job. He know nobody. But within a space of 5 years, he knew what drove him from Nigeria. He got his PhD there. He became a lecturer there. He married there. He built houses there, which even the citizens that he met there could not achieve because they are having this entitlement syndrome. You understand now? They are not doing anything about their condition. So Nigeria should do something about our condition if we want things to change. You can't just assume that change must change now. Some people must do it now. When you yourself, you are not being active, proactive for change.
Okay, on this note, we want to say a big thank you to Dr. Adekunle Onile, who's an economist, for being a guest on our program this morning. We say a big thank you to you on behalf of our producers and crew members. Thank you very much, Dr. Onile.
It has always been a pleasure.
All right, we'll go on the break, and when we come back, our second guest will be joining us. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. It's still AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. We have our second guest with us in the studio as we continue the conversation, debate on the proposed $1.25 billion bank loan. That's what World Bank loan, that's what we've been discussing. And of course, we have Mr. Bright Richard, who is a public affairs analyst. Mr. Bright Richard, you're welcome.
Yeah, good morning to you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you for always being here.
Thank you for the privilege.
Let's look at this loan of a thing. Even the economists who just left told us that there's no big deal in borrowing. But Nigerians have stormed the social media pages of the World Bank following reports of a proposed $1.25 billion loan linked to the Nigerian government, sparking widespread debate online. The reaction, which trended across X, former Twitter, showed users flooding comments sections with mixed opinion about Nigeria's borrowing pattern and national debt situation. Many users expressed strong opposition to further loans, warning against increasing the country's debt burden, while others criticized government spending. We thought, one would have thought that this administration will focus more on reducing the cost of governance, which we felt that was one of the things that would help us to cut costs in this country amid the world or global economic hardship. But unfortunately, we're still where we are. I don't know if the spendings are increasing, but we have not been able to cut costs, so what's your take on this?
Yes, I used to believe before now that it is not a crime to borrow. But of recent, I've begun to consider my thought or my stance because it's like a little child playing with fire. At the end of the day, the child will end up burning himself. It's also an adult playing with fire. The adult knows how to go about it. So when it comes to loan, it depends on who is borrowing. Now, from 2023 to date, it is passive or on record, this administration have collected over 60 trillion naira in terms of loan. Now, look at the economy. Does the economy actually look like what 60 trillion naira have been invested into? And that was why Nigerians have to flood the social media handle of the World Bank. 60 trillion naira is not a joke. So if there are evidence to show we borrowed 10 trillion naira for power sector, and the power sector is working, Nigerians will even advise the government, can you borrow another 10 trillion naira for the transportation sector? If you borrow for health, and we'll discover that the health sector is functioning well, then it will be easy. But in a situation where we cannot actually pinpoint on what the government is doing with the loans that they are collecting, then it becomes an issue. Now, 2025, the government spent about $5 billion in debt servicing, not even loan repayment. Now, in 2026, there's a projection that they may likely spend $11 billion in servicing debt. Now, the next question is, how much will the government spend next year, 2027, in debt servicing?
Please, let's get something quickly. What's the difference between loan repayment and servicing debt? Let's get it.
No, I collected a loan from Bank A, and I'm to pay the interest rate. Let's say they give me a loan term of about, let's say, about 6 years or 10 years or whatever the case may be. And my yearly payment may be like 100 million or thereabouts, together with interest. And every year, I am paying the interest. The essence of paying the interest is because I don't want it to be a default. While carrying over the capital, that's servicing. You have a car, you change the oil so that the car will not go bad. You have a debt, you pay the interest so that it doesn't become a default.
I'm trying to get it. Will I owe you money and then I'm paying the interest and I'm not paying the money?
It pays the lender.
How?
Yeah, when Obasanjo came with what they call debt relief, before it was granted, most times, most organizations, before they grant you debt relief, they must have looked at what you've paid so far in terms of servicing. And for a loan of 100 million, if you look at servicing, if you service that loan for over 10 years, you may discover that you may end up paying over 200 million because you are only servicing it so that it doesn't go bad. It doesn't become a bad loan.
So why can't we pay the money rather than just servicing?
Now, one of the facts that we can actually use to pinpoint that to know that we are not paying the loan, but rather we are servicing, is for us to sit down, look at the figures we used in servicing last year and the figures we used in servicing the previous year. That's why I brought 2 years, 2024 and 2025 and 2026, 11 billion. 5 billion was used last year. And it's proposed another $11 billion is going to be used this same year because more money is coming. If more money is coming and your debt burden keeps on increasing, it's a simple calculation. You have a house with 20 blocks and you go out there, you bring in 2 blocks. What happens to the 20 blocks? It becomes 22. But if you have 20 blocks in your house and you take away 5 blocks as a form of repayment, and you go out there and you are bringing in 2 blocks, it will become 17. You take away 5 again. From the 17, you are left with 12, and you bring in 2 more blocks. It becomes 14. The debt profile is dropping. The block count is dropping. But in Nigeria case, the debt profile is increasing. The servicing is increasing. That alone justifies the fact that what the government does is just paying interest, just to sustain the loan. It doesn't become a bad debt. The administration is not being held accountable.
Let's look at the role of our National Assembly. What role should the National Assembly play apart from giving approval to the president to get this loan? What role are they supposed to play?
Now, one of the roles when it comes to debt, because that's why I always make this statement on different platforms, any platform I go, that sometimes I imagine an Oshomole in the opposition party, not in the ruling party. Ali Dume, not in the ruling party, in the opposition party. Is it the 9th Assembly, Saraki's Assembly, would have a picture of that, where a government comes with this debt loan request.
It's about the party affiliation, so knowing the job to do.
Is your affiliation that will make your mind to be broad. And that is why you be objective in your approach. But when you are part of the system, you want to cover up. You see husband and wife coming together to conspire against, because the husband may know that this thing is bad, but just because of their affiliation, the party affiliation, they are in the same ruling party, and they know their interest is at stake. You cannot come to the floor of the house and be opposing your party. Thereby, you discredit your party. The point I'm trying to raise is that by the time some of this request is being taken to the assembly, these people would have asked questions. Not quite long, they came up with a request. What have you done with the request? What is this loan being tied to? The one you collected previously, can we have a report on what you've done? And let's see the progress so far. What is the payment terms? What is the interest rate? And what are the conditions? I remember during the time of Buhari, when Nigerians keep on running to China for loans, people were asking questions. And they claimed those loans were tied to the railway project. I never object, and I can't object because the railway is an asset. And if the railway corporation would have been run the way it ought to be run commercially, whatever profit being generated from the railway itself can be used to offset the loans. But in our system, it's not like that. The $1.2 billion loan the government is collecting, the next question is, what are they using it for? What specific project? I think of recent, they collected about, some billions of dollars or some millions of dollars that they said they want to use as, counterpart fund for the Lagos, Sokoto, Badagry Highway. In that situation, I would say it's not a problem. because that money is being tied to a project. Then the next question is, let's go to that project itself. Let's investigate. Let's check the project. Is the money being utilized for the project? How much of it have been released? And what is the work so far? What have been done? Look at the Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway. 30%. How much was borrowed for it? And what is being utilized? The other ones, who is to fund it? And initially, that project we were made to understand that that project is supposed to be a public-private partnership. Government is to fund a part of it, and the private sector is also to fund the other part of it. So coming back to this loan, the question is, what is this $1.25 billion loan being used for? Sometimes the Nigerians flooded the World Bank, asking them not to borrow. But there's an aspect that Nigerians have failed to realize, that we have consultants. I listened to part of what the first guest said, and I want to bring it down to the normal commercial banking system. In the commercial banks, you have the marketers, the same way the World Bank have their consultants. As a marketer attached to a commercial bank, what do? You go out there, you source for clients. You source for people that will come to open accounts with your bank. But the World Bank don't do that, but rather they provide facility. So consultants facilitate these facilities. And by extension, part of their merit, part of their gain is they have a commission they get for these facilities once it's been approved. So by the time they facilitate this process and the government goes ahead, they have their own commission.
So you're saying the Nigerians in there as consultants might also get commission?
There are senators who were once said to be consultants to some of these
I was asking the previous guest earlier on, and I looked at the times of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, as managing director of the World Bank. And, there were questions because we didn't go out borrowing as much as we have done recently, at least in the last 3 years, under a single administration. And I was thinking, maybe it's my naive mind, maybe because I don't know too much about these things, but I was thinking that in the several years that she spent there, we didn't borrow as much as we have been borrowing. And maybe it's because she was able to, understand the Nigerian climate and the government and, ensure that they do not just borrow recklessly or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just my naive mind.
Yeah, let me still relate it in another form too. I'll throw it to you personally. I know you won't answer, but you will get the picture. I'm trying to create a picture. You work, you are a worker. You know how much is your salary. And it will be very difficult for you to borrow beyond your salary, beyond your capacity to pay. And that is exactly what the Nigerian government is doing. And the excuse for this is they tied it to GDP. And what it simply means by GDP is what they call gross domestic produce. Now, if government is tying loan to GDP, what it simply means in the literal form is that I can borrow $1 billion. I will get that money from tax. That's GDP. What is being produced in the economy should be able to generate the money to use to pay those loans. That is just a simple explanation.
And on that note, that takes me to the issue of that road construction you mentioned earlier, from the north to the southwest. Now, how do we regenerate those income? Because again, if I want to borrow, then maybe I think of borrowing for a business, not to borrow to buy a car that I'm not going to commercialize. Now, so where those construction or infrastructural development have been put in place, let's look at the ones we have done. What have we generated?
Now, when you talk about policy formation, there are ways it is being done. There was a time there was this debate on, I've forgotten the name, the target on petroleum tax, 5%. If you are buying above 10 liters, there's a 5% tax the government was trying to introduce then. That tax was actually meant for road maintenance. Now, when government borrow to fix roads or to construct roads, one of the payment strategy for such road, there are two sides to it. One is either the government is going to toll those roads. That whatever is being generated from those roads will be used to offset the debt.
Exactly the point.
That is one strategy. While the second strategy is formulating policies. Is it from our GDP? Is it from our revenue? Some of these tax we see are not just tax. Tax are targeted towards something. There was a time the government came up with sugar tax, that carbonated drinks are going to be taxed. And the reason they gave is because of diabetes, that in a way to control sugar consumption, that they are going to introduce sugar beverage tax. That was about 2-3 years ago. So taxation, some of these things, that's where GDP, debt through GDP lies. So government can sit down. When Oyedele was formulating some of the tax, they look at some of these things, and based on that, that was what even gives government mind to go ahead to borrow. Because it's either the people pay directly, and that's why when they say Nigerians are owing 700 and something thousand naira, each and every one of you minus me, on a lighter
Minus
note.
me.
No, that's the fact. We are all owing.
Are we all?
Yes. Indirectly, the government will get the money from you.
Okay.
Nobody will knock your door that you have to pay. But when you buy for 1,350 naira, 1,325 naira, indirectly you are paying.
Okay, let's look at the National Assembly. They have a role to play. It's not just about approving this loan, but they should have the oversight function on these loans when they are being collected. Do you think they're doing due diligence regarding the issue of loans?
So that was why I started by saying I just picture Oshomole, Ali Dume, and some of them in the opposition. It will give them the boldness to actually do that. But when they begin to talk, at the back door, they will just use party affiliation and settle them, and they will keep quiet. They won't speak more, because the National Assembly, it is their responsibility. They are the one representing you and I. Not everything we see on platforms like this gets to them. Even though a good number of them gets to them. But we don't have the power to stop them. If the National Assembly says they are not approving a loan, they won't go ahead in doing it. So they have the power to do that. But because, and that is where we'll begin to hear insinuations that maybe before some of this request comes on board, envelope have already gone ahead. Look at the case of 210 trillion naira from the NNPC. I did a simple calculation. Nigeria is owing 159 trillion naira. NNPC cannot account for 210 trillion naira. Just do simple subtraction. 210 minus 159. The balance, take the trillion naira to go and fund an infrastructure. Nigeria will be fine. We are not owing it anymore. But just because they know themselves,
Does it mean some people are benefiting from this process?
A lot are benefiting. Take an issue to the National Assembly, you begin to hear the next thing off the mic. And by the time they do their committee meetings, you see some arguing because of what they even do some of this investigation, not because of the interests of Nigerians, but because something is going to exchange and the microphone will be off. Have the National Assembly actually concluded any investigation? They will come up findings. Even the group that have been trying to, but they are not finding it funny, which is Serap. The man from the power, is it one of these MDAs associated with power, that the EFCC got arrested of over 500 billion naira. Don't be surprised in the next distance time, you will see such a figure contesting, coming back into the political stage. But the point is, we cannot continue this idea of borrowing, because as at when PDP left office, I think that was 2015, if I'm right, the question is, what was Nigeria's debt profile? It was 12 trillion naira. When Jonathan left office, it was 12 trillion naira. As at today, we are talking of almost 160 trillion naira. Now, it's a simple logic. 160 trillion naira, even if the government have invested it on infrastructure alone, Nigeria should be having good infrastructure.
I remember recently I came across a debate that people people are pointing at the other contestants for the previous general elections. One of them contested for this one. And since you've taken us to the politics of it, is it possible that we actually have investments in health, education, and infrastructure give us good fruits within a year or two that would ensure that we are not borrowing this among us? I'm asking because one of those contestants said that during his debates recently, saying instead of going to borrow loans, he's going to do this and that. And this is some of the things you mentioned. So is it possible, because I know you've analyzed a lot of things over the years, is it possible that if we invest in education, health, infrastructure, within a year or two, we are going to reap fruits that will be large enough for us to say we're not going to go out borrowing?
For somebody to come up boldly to say he's not going to borrow, then definitely he or she must have done what it would take to generate revenue.
Oh, no politicians.
And no, politicians, they lie a lot, and they say a lot of things that they cannot do. And when they get there, they will be faced with reality, and they'll find it difficult to cope. When they've been campaigning, making noise that by the time we take out subsidy, Nigeria is not going to borrow money, Nigeria is not going to do this and that. Most times when I hear such statements, I laugh. Removal of subsidy is not a guarantee that revenue will be adequate. How much did Buhari paid 2023? 3 trillion naira. How much did the government borrow that same year? 3 trillion naira and 159 trillion naira. The difference is much. How much were we paying for subsidy yearly? 6 trillion naira. That's the highest we've paid so far. So removing subsidy wouldn't have actually cured the revenue crisis or deficit that we are talking about. The major problem the country had is not even revenue. It is corruption. And that was why I said NNPC, just one institution. We've not even gone to the CBN. Look at Emefiele's cases. We don't even know what is happening now. By the time you take Cardoso and put the next man there, maybe a lot of revelation will come up. Look at the NNPC, 210 trillion naira. So what that politician is trying to say, that we should have stopped borrowing, is very simple. Imagine, look at Oyo State, for instance. One of the things the governor did is to make sure that the roads in the intercities are okay. I'm not going to sing his praise, but I will say one or two things. But let's look at it from the positive perspective. For those who have been to the Old Ife Road, been to some other roads he has constructed, the Ring Road and the others, you discover that there's one thing road does. Having a good road, it creates what? Accessibility. And it opens up that particular environment. People come in. Look at where the previous administration stopped at Old Ife Road, very close to the Gbagi Market. When he came, he completed it down to Adigbai. If I'm right, yes, that's Adigbai. Now, from that point down to Adigbai, for those who pass through that road, I passed there a lot, so that's why I can be able to use it as an analysis. Look at the type of businesses that have creeping to that premise, that particular, just that stretch of road alone. And also with the park he built at the airport junction, it attracts leisure investment. You see malls, you see supermarket, you see lounge springing up. Go to the other side of the town too. So that is what development can actually do. Then when investment are coming in, how do government benefit from investment? Through tax. If investment are there, government can tax, and those investors will happily pay tax because their business are striving. But a situation where investment are not coming, and you want people to pay tax, you are earning 100,000, and at the end of the month, you cannot, the 100,000 cannot even survive you and your family. And somebody is telling you that even from that 100,000, you will still come and pay tax. It will look as if it's a burden. But if you are earning 50,000 and in a month, you cannot even spend up to 10,000 naira, and somebody is asking you to pay tax, you say, how much is the tax? You say, okay, 5,000 naira. I say, no problem. I don't have a problem with that. At least I have over 30,000 naira left over from my salary. You can see the difference. The man earning much, 100,000 could not pay tax because his expenses, his expenditure is more than the 100,000. But the one earning 50,000 will gladly pay tax because at the end of the month, he's not spending up to 10,000 for feeding, accommodation, school fees, rent, and the others. So that will now give the government a mindset that what do we need? Is it increment of salaries? Is it increment of tax or reducing the cost of living? If the cost of living can be reduced, which means you are creating more value. You did not increase his salary, but rather you've reduced the cost that he is spending from his salary.
Is that not going to be subsidy at some point?
It's not subsidy.
Is what?
Fine. I speak to some friends in Europe and different places. They made a statement that you can be going to work in the morning and you see a bad spot in front of your house on the road, that you can almost be very sure that before you come back from work, they must have fixed it. Because tax is a social contract. And what does it mean by a social contract? You have your house. You have your own house. I have my house. Collectively, we are paying like an endowment or a trust fund to the government for them to provide basic amenities to take care of the three of us. I don't want to do it on my own. You are not doing it on your own, and he's not doing it on his own. But we are contributing to the government. So which means the government owes us an obligation to get things done. And because the government is getting those things done, things are moving fine. Healthcare is provided. I don't need to spend much for healthcare because there are health institutions that have reduced my expenses. I don't need to buy a car because there are rapid mass transit in the States. If I don't want to go by bus, that's a BRT bus, that's bus rapid transport. If I don't want to go by the bus, I can go by train. If I don't want to go by train, there are other public services that are there. And the man who is operating the rapid, why they call it rapid is because it can convey large number of persons at the same time with the same quantity of fuel or diesel or whatever it's using. It's like you are buying 20 liters and you are using a 20-seater carrier. The other man is buying the same 20 liter and is using a 50-seater carrier. Both of them will burn the same amount of diesel to the same destination. But the 50-seater carrier will be cheaper. And the same 20 liter for a 4-seater carrier. Go around town. Most of our transport system is either the bike or the keke or the Micra. How many can they carry at the same time? So these are things that government can actually invest into. Rapid mass transit system that can carry more people at the same time. So what you are spending for 20 liters is what 50 persons will spend for 20 liters. So the man who is using the 50-seater carrier can even charge 20 naira. So if I know 20 naira is what I will use to go to work, why should I buy a car? So those are where development comes in. So if government is building and investing on these areas, then you discover that the cost of living will drop.
Now, I was impressed with the way you are doing the calculations and everything. And this takes me to something I read this morning where the federal government expressed worries over the literacy rates in some states that benefited from about 80% of the education funds. Now, my question is, well, 80% of education funds is something, it looks big, but how much exactly is being budgeted for education when you look at the entire budget of the country? And now you're seeing moves from JAM recently, the cutoff mark, which has created quite the uproar, the removal of some subjects, saying some subjects are not so compulsory now. And we're talking about education as an investment for the future of Nigeria. And when you're looking at some of the things that we are seeing helping some countries, surely some subjects are at the core of it all. How do we address education to help us?
Now, there are two sides you can actually view education. You can view it as a social amenities. That means is it UBEC law or whatever, that it is your right as a child to go to school up to junior secondary school level. It is your right. So if any parent listening that did not send his child to primary school or junior secondary school can be arrested. It's an offense. So if we look at it from that perspective, definitely government needs to provide education. That's one. Education can also be a contribution to the economy. And why do I say so? Look at a lot of Nigerians travel to the UK to do what? For education. It has become a tourism, capital flight. So it's attracting Africans and Asians from different parts of the world. They come to those schools, they patronize those schools. So the government we can view it from different perspectives. Now, when somebody goes to school, like when I was still young, they say, go to school. When somebody goes to school, I always tell people, going to school will not make you rich, but it's going to broaden your thinking. It's like a pencil. I have a pencil, you have a pencil. If you don't sharpen the mouth of that pencil, it won't be functional. So you say you have a pencil, that's good. But can your pencil write? That will be the next question. So education does that. And that's why I find it difficult in agreeing with people that say, oh, he went to school, he's now riding Okada, he went to school, he's now pushing keke. Is that the best he can actually think? There's a difference between a trader and an entrepreneur. There's a difference between a tailor and a fashion designer. That's where education comes in. So you know where you place yourself, your ability to think. And that is where government is also failing. Now, let me bring it back to government. When last did we review our curriculum? Computer science is still computer science. The syllabus, what they used in teaching in 1982 is almost the same thing they still use in our institution. But education has gone beyond that. We are talking about AI, artificial intelligence. How many computer science department offers that? If you want to learn that, go to the roadside. So these are things we need to look into, review the curriculum, and let it be up to date, because education can give us a whole lot.
Okay. All right, as we wind down gradually on the program, I'd like to ask you, so should we still expect the government will borrow after this? They get this payment from the World Bank. Should we expect more borrowings in this administration?
For me, I would say they will borrow more. Do you know why I said they will borrow more? This is campaign. In a year, if you observe the trends, 2023, go back to 2015, also wind it back to 2011, and this is 2026. The year preceding campaign, two things happened. Two major things. Number one, governance reduce. You have more of politics. You have more of politics. And politics is not cheap. So when they talk about borrowing, in a year that you know that the president will be moving from one state to the other for campaign. His election is January. So what is he going to do? So by August, they'll be moving from one state to the other campaigning. And you want to borrow more that year. It shows where the money is going to. Why is Opus Odima's seat being threatened? There's allegations against him that there's what they call the Renewed Hope Ambassador, that a certain amount of money will be deducted from their FAC, money that's supposed to be going to the state, will be deducted from FAC. That money will be sent to the Renewed Hope ambassadors. That money will be used for campaign. But it was surprising that the governor of Kwara State and that of